Yeah, so other countries have set some pretty ambitious targets, and they've been hitting them or come very close to. So, to put it into that global context, Australia's at about 700,000 or 3% of the population. Um, some of the global frontrunners are Israel at about 60% of the population, the UK is at 45%, the United States at 30%, and indeed most of Europe is around 15 to 30%. And it's not just sort of those similar OECD developed nations. In South America, Uruguay and Chile are way out ahead, Brazil as well. Turkey and Russia are also ahead of Australia in terms of the proportion of their population that have started getting the vaccine. And I think, one way of looking at it is that in 2 days, the UK will vaccinate as many people as Australia has done over the last 2 months.
Well, Toby, the countries which are vaccinating at a faster rate, what do you put that down to? Is it better planning, organisation, distribution?
Well, I think partly it's about the ambition. It's about setting those big targets and then swinging behind all parts of government behind making it happen. Just one example is to look at the United Kingdom. They've made this their big national priority. For them, they've also spent the last few months in a very tight lockdown, so this is their way out. But they've set up massive vaccination centres. They've repurposed town halls, church halls, gymnasiums. They've built a big volunteer workforce. So they're training people to manage these centres, to look after people after they've had the jab. They're even training volunteers to administer the vaccines, whereas in Australia, it's all kind of happening through the existing infrastructure. So I think there's definitely something about treating it as a national scale mission and building the infrastructure and the special logistics to do it, rather than trying to just move it through the existing chains that we would to get any other kind of pharmaceutical product out there.
And is it too early to tell what effect vaccination programs are having on infection rates?
Look, it's a little bit. There's definitely mixed evidence, and to be honest, it seems like this is a bit of a walking a tightrope moment. There's really good results coming out of the UK and Israel. They've had very high rates of vaccinations, and their case numbers and hospitalisation numbers are starting to decrease. But we can also look at Chile and the United States, which are two of the global frontrunners, and they're seeing big spikes in cases at the moment. The same is true in India, which has done a lot of vaccinations. And it's also too early to say whether this is about the effectiveness of the vaccines, or whether this is about a shift in behaviour where the community starts to get a bit more relaxed and perhaps starts loosening their social distancing a little bit too soon before you've got enough of the population vaccinated. I'd also say in the long term, just about this question of, is it too soon to say whether vaccines are working, even though we're seeing some good results in a few countries, and even though there are a lot of countries ahead of Australia, the vast majority of the global population aren't currently being given vaccines and don't have access. So there's big kind of reservoirs, particularly in poorer countries, of unvaccinated people. And so this is where, even if the vaccine is successful at controlling the pandemic in a place like the United Kingdom or even Australia, if you've got big groups of unvaccinated people, there's a big potential risk for mutations that are then going to be resistant to the vaccines that we have here in Australia. So it truly is a global challenge, and it's one that COVID all along has been a global challenge, and the vaccination effort is one where even more we're going to have to solve it as a global community.
You've been tracking how countries have dealt with the pandemic for a year now. What's been the most surprising discovery in the past 12 months?
I think the most surprising thing would probably be the willingness of communities and of people to do what needs to be done to control the vaccine. So I think that varies a lot between countries, and it also varies a lot over time. And so that's what we're researching in particular. But if we were talking a year ago, I remember doing an interview with the ABC and kind of talking about when would we be able to go back to travel, when would we be able to go back to normal. And the fact is we've spent a full year where cities like Melbourne in Australia spent several months going through very strict protocols. And I think the willingness of people and communities to, if they have a well-communicated plan, and if they've got a kind of consistent leadership, that people are willing to do what it takes. And so, despite there's a lot of doom and gloom, and this is a little bit of a scary situation to be in and to be living through, it's quite heartening to see that where there's strong leadership in place and where there's a clear plan, that communities do swing behind it.
Great to get your insights. Toby Phillips, thank you.
Thank you.